There we go. All right. John Rios,
Hello.
brother,
Great to see
I've
you.
been waiting for this for a hot minute.
Me too. I've been looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it.
You are a man that is always swamped in high demand, but I've appreciated you as a brother since we first met in 2011, I believe it was,
Could be, man. It's been a while.
when I was starting my jewelry company over at Kit's shop.
Great stuff. I still have quite a few pieces. That's some great stuff.
Yeah, I probably need to get those from you and shine them up a little bit.
I love them. I've got them in a safe spot. So I love
Right on. Cool, cool. Let me give you a brief intro here for the audience and the listeners so they get a feel for who you are. John Rios, you are a renowned illustrator and designer. You're a self-taught artist, celebrated for your dynamic stage designs and backdrops for major music industry icons. You're a collaborator with many music legends such as Kiss, Motley Crue, Ted Nugent, Alice Cooper, and Kid Rock, to name a few, amongst many others. You have a diverse artistic expertise. Beyond stage art, you excel in advertising, character design, caricatures, and showcasing your versatility across various creative domains. You're also a veteran, former corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps, and you now lead your own design venture, John Rios FaceTime, delivering unique artistic solutions to broad clientele. You're Detroit's artistic gem, meaning you're based here in Michigan and your work has been featured many prominent publications on platforms like Orange County's Choppers Calendar, solidifying your status as a key figure in Detroit's vibrant art scene, as well as many of the musical artists as well. So that's just a brief clip, but it's so much broader. And I've had the experience of sharing in some of that with you. So to kick it off, let me go with my first and only scripted question, and that is, where were you born and what was life like as a kid for John?
it. Where was I born? I was born in Carson City, Michigan, little village, just central Michigan, about 50 some odd miles northeast of Grand Rapids. And let's see, I grew up in a little town called Stanton, and I went to Central Montcalm High School. That was pretty much the end of my schooling. I didn't go into college or anything like that. After school, I went into the Marine Corps, as you mentioned. But growing up, I always, we're talking not to age myself too deep, but we're talking, this was before you could have a computer in your house. That was something for IBM to have in a big building. I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't know what that meant. So back then, an artist meant you got paintbrushes or clay and you did whatever you were going to do, and to a degree. And but I knew that somehow or another I was going to be an artist, and it was always, what I just knew in my gut, my heart, my soul, my being, my everything. That's what I was going to do. I pursued that. I went into the Marine Corps and I got out because I knew that I wanted to be an artist. I did my 4 years, which I'm one of the greatest experiences of my life, to do that. And I have brothers to this day that we went through some things that we'll be together spiritually and mentally and friendship forever.
Yeah.
But so I got out in 86 and I moved to the Detroit area and I started moonlighting, running around telling anybody that would stand still, hey, I'm an artist, I can do whatever. And I really, I was kind of like this. And I was a security guard at IBM, of all things. And the FedEx guy used to come in and I'd be doodling at the desk there between doing whatever. And he said, I want to introduce you to my sister, who was an art director for a magazine. And she looked at my art and she sent me to another art director. His name was Michael Ban, who was an art director down in Detroit. And I forget the name of it was a Detroit magazine. And he looked at me and said, man, your strength is towards cartoon illustrating that way. And because I was like I was throwing paint at the wall, whatever, see what sticks.
Yeah.
I hadn't had, like I said, I didn't have formal education. I hadn't honed anything other than what I came to my mind and whatever I wanted to do. I started, what did I start doing? I started just, like I said, just stopping anybody that would stand still. I worked for some veterans doing some t-shirt designs, and I went to, it was WLLZ back then, and I came up with some concepts for a mascot, and I just, anything I could think of to get my name out there to let people know I was here and I was making art.
Yeah.
And so I
Let
just
me,
moved like that.
right on. Let me just back you up just for a little bit because I want to capture something is, that I believe is there for the audience before we get up to that point of the radio station component. As a kid and in elementary school, you already had that in you that you wanted to be an artist and a creative.
Yes.
Did you have brothers and sisters at all?
I have a brother, and then my mom passed away when I was 15,
Okay.
and my dad remarried, and I have two stepbrothers and a stepsister.
Okay. And were any of those gifted with the creative abilities as well?
Not really, no. Nobody else drew or painted or aspired to that. I have a cousin. I grew up in a really rural area, and if you can imagine, the influences were few and far between. You didn't have internet, so whatever you caught on TV by chance was,
Sure.
so those were, but I have a cousin who's a fantastic artist, and so she was an early influence when I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And how about your parents? Did your parents have any artistic abilities either? No.
No, nobody.
Okay.
I mean, no, I didn't have, other than my one cousin that I'd see occasionally. That's the only. And then my art teacher. Uh,
Gotcha.
I got a really good art teacher in high school.
All right. So you were dropped in as a creative, basically. You
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
boom, here you go. This is your path.
yeah. How do you say it? You just feel it.
Yeah.
I just felt it. I just knew it. I just, there was never a doubt what I was going to do in my mind. It's just a matter of finding it. So
Right.
I, like, I don't know. I had to find my way. And that's, you just, like I say, throw mud at the wall and see what sticks. And I just found my own way. I started, I always doubted my inner voice early on and my inner thoughts. And I didn't trust that. But I
Yeah.
learned later on to go, shut up, man, listen to that. Because some of my best ideas, that's another, we can talk about that later, but some of my best ideas are like when I'm waking up and
Yeah.
I'm having a good night's rest, and like all of a sudden I just start thinking about, okay, I want to do this today and this, and then I start thinking about the process of that, and I'm still half asleep, and then I go, oh, that's a great idea. And I could delve into that later, where I've done things for major companies that they've used, and in that space where I'm relaxed. But yeah, just trusting your inner voice and listening to, coming in tune with. I've had conversations with some artists in Detroit, and we'd sit around and talk. And it's been many years ago that we did this, but we talked about, if you will, the gift, or the gift
Yeah.
of creating art, or because not everybody can do what you and I do or other artists do.
Yeah.
Not everybody, you can pay a lot of money and go to college and learn skills and techniques and all that, but there's there are certain people that just get it. And I am no Van Gogh and I'm no Picasso, but those guys, or Norman Rockwell or whatever, they do, Sebastian Kruger, they do it on another level that, yes, you can learn it, but can you
Yeah.
to that level? So it was about, the point I wanted to get to was, the gift is not the ability to draw or create necessarily. The gift is being able to receive.
Yes.
And that is what I learned about 20 years ago, through some conversations with some people, and my brain just went, whoa, what did he just say? There
Yeah.
was a friend of mine, and I haven't seen him in a long time, but he was talking about just getting yourself centered. And I don't know if the word is Zen or what it is, but if you allow yourself to become a conduit,
Yes.
and be able to receive,
Yep.
you can, you put yourself in this headspace where It's, anybody who writes a song, or not all of us can do that, but there's a place you can be. And it's not like I can go hit the switch and receive it. It just happens. I don't know how to say it better than that. It just happens. But the more you do it, the more you get, the more you can get these great ideas and inspiration. I looked at this drawing behind. I did this, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe, and I'm like, can I still draw that good? Because I'm looking at it going, wow, I really spent some time and effort and tried to make that as good as I could do it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's about as good as I'll ever produce anything. But I was in the right space, and I felt an emotion and a connection to that character and the anger and his story and his plight. And so just I was able to just focus and receive the gift of being able to do that. I don't know if that makes any sense at all,
No, it
but
makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense. That I think that's truly a place of creativity is being able to slip into that place of receiving and be the conduit, allow that stuff to flow through you, those ideas, those concepts. I think that's where the magic happens, honestly. One of the things that you mentioned was that your mom passed away when you were 15, and that's going into high school, right at the freshman year of high school age. How did that affect you mentally, spiritually, any of those
uh,
things?
for the longest time, I think she was sick for a long time.
Okay,
And so I remember seeing her suffer for a long
gotcha.
time. And initially, I think I was more happy that she wasn't suffering anymore. So I didn't really allow myself to grieve for a long time after that.
Okay,
And because I was in a place where she just suffered. So she had a disease called scleroderma. And basically, the short story of how that is, it makes your skin turn to stone and then your internal organs. So basically, your whole body hardens up like a rock.
oh
And
wow.
so she just suffered for so. I remember her putting her hands in melting wax, just boiling wax, just to that heat, pain. But that's what they had back in '87, whatever, 80.
Okay,
What am I saying? 87. That was '78. Yeah, that's when she passed. But yeah, I don't know, man. How did it? I was the oldest.
okay.
My little brother, I guess I felt like I don't know, maybe I felt like I couldn't, I had to be strong. I, I think I remember trying to take care of making dinner,
Yeah.
which consisted of banquet chicken and mac and or a hamburger helper for a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was 15. 3 years later, I went into service, and by that time, my dad had remarried. I don't know. It took me a while to grieve about that because I felt a sense of responsibility and being the oldest.
For sure.
I don't know how I dealt with that exactly. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
no, yeah, that's understandable. That's understandable. You don't know this, but my father, I don't think you know this yet, but my father passed away at the end of 2021, and
Sorry.
he passed away from lung disease, but he was suffered as well for quite a while. So I can relate to that sense of feeling a bit of relief, and it's a relief more so for them because you hate to see him laying there in agony and pain. And for him, not only was it an agony, but it was just a struggle to breathe. Every everything that he did, it was difficult because he was trying to breathe through it. Even eating at the end, it was a chore, trying to take a bite and then also trying to breathe in between. But with that experience, you also mentioned that you had a great art teacher in high school that kind of laid some foundation work for you.
Yeah, yeah, Mr. Kemmler. How do you say it? He had an innate ability to make his students feel like they weren't kids. Treated people in a very adult and human and fair and even manner. And so he would get, and for me, he would let me have the classroom after school to myself because he trusted me. And I'd go in and like work on a painting that I wanted to spend more time on.
Yeah.
He would get projects from people that, hey, can you draw this or do that? It's a cartoon type of thing. And he'd go, John, you want to handle this for me? So I'd get credit for doing whatever to get it off of his plate. And then there was a class at a college on a weekend. We have a community college not far from where I grew up. And
Yeah.
he made sure that he took me to that so that I learned some of the things I learned was like hand lettering with a paintbrush and some other techniques on a one weekend thing that was a special thing that so he showed this real belief in what I was doing and he could see something in me that what I was doing and he showed it by those things giving me his work that he didn't want to do and taking me to that class and letting me stay after school and trusting me with the entire art room that I wasn't going to do something stupid like trash it or anything. I just genuinely wanted to work on my artwork. And we did, there's this respect factor that he gave me more than anything that belief in what I was doing really had and then I mean he taught me the basic 2 point perspective, 1 point perspective and that kind of thing and the aspects of drawing a face correctly and blah, all these things.
Right.
But that over and above what an art teacher teaches as far as technically respect factor that he gave me was just that was like boom, somebody can see something in what I'm wanting to do here. So that was big to me. And that another and one of the things they got me you got me think one of these things my dad didn't understand. My dad he had a rough childhood, born in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And his dad was a rough man on him. And he put, this little kid with a machete and he would be cutting sugar cane and they'd throw 50-pound bags of whatever on his back and send him up the mountain and I could go into great detail about what a rough childhood he had, but he
Yeah.
grew up, if you're gonna support your family, you have to do physical labor.
Yeah.
So him wrapping his brain around that I was doing artwork and keeping a roof over my head, he couldn't understand that at all for the longest time. And as far as like gifts, like Mr. Kemmler was a gift.
Yeah.
He did. And my dad gave me one gift in his life that he didn't even realize he was doing it, but it was just one sentence that really hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was this. And it's not necessarily a compliment, but to me, it was like an eye opener. And he says to me one day, I'm telling him about, hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and whatever it was. And he said to me, you're still doing that art thing? And I'm like, for what it did to me was like, number one, it made me think he isn't taking me seriously. And then I got to thinking, maybe nobody else is taking me seriously. And that kicked me in the ass. It kicked me in the ass. And I really like I looked in for a couple of months and said, what am I doing? And why isn't he taking me seriously? And because in my head, in my heart, I left the Marine Corps and he was like, you should be a security guard at a prison or something. They're hiring those. They got a good living and you can get a retirement. And I'm thinking, nah, man, it's not what I do, it's who I am,
Yeah.
you know? And so after a period of time, and he was still not getting that was a huge gift to me because it kicked me in the pants. And I learned some computer programs like Adobe,
Yeah.
Suite,
Yeah.
and I tried to spend more time refining what I was doing and trying to pursue more things. It's one thing I don't know, I tried to focus where I was going, I guess
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still doing that art thing? It's okay.
Right. Yeah,
That
exactly. What's interesting about that is the fact that I think a lot of artists that come from families where their parents have done hard labor arduous work. And that's the only thing that they kind of understand in terms of being able to take care of their families. They don't comprehend the creativity that a child may have and understand what direction it's going to be able to take them in. What was interesting, as well as that, your dad not understanding it, but you've got a teacher at school who is not only recognizing that you have this ability and it's good, but also it's good enough for him to hand off a project that he's supposed to be working on to you and
Yeah,
trusting you enough to be like, John can handle this. Take care of this kid. He'll give you some experience.
you got to understand. I'm talking about being an artist. You get hit up all the time by somebody. Oh, can you just make this, do this little thing for me?
Yeah.
Whatever it was. I don't know, but it wasn't like it was a huge commission for him or anything. It was just like somebody going, "Hey, somebody's like pestering him, make do this for." Me. I was happy for it, and I'm 61 now. I remember it was a big deal.
Yeah,
You know,
for
it was
sure.
a big deal for me. So I was honored and happy to just the belief.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big deal for any creative artist, musician, whatever, when somebody realizes that they have a skill, they have a talent, and they acknowledge it. That's
Right.
just, that's big for every of them,
Right.
everybody,
I agree.
all of us. So you're ending high school and you're making a decision in terms of what's going to come next. How did the decision come into play of not going into any other higher learning of art versus Marine Corps?
That's my dad again, man.
Okay. All right.
Literally, this is I came home from school one day, and my dad told my brother Joe and I to get in the car.
Okay.
And so we did, and we went over to the next town. It's Greenville. And halfway there, he says, "You know where we're going?" And I says, "No." And he said, "We're going to go talk to the Marine Corps recruiter." And I sat there like silent for miles. I was numb. I didn't know why we were doing this because I was reasonably sure I was going to be an artist of some kind, maybe a musician, because by that time I'd had a guitar and I was going to be some kind of rock star, hot shit artist. And I was worried about guitar strings and Doritos, not the Marine Corps. I literally went over there, talked to this guy, and 3 days later, I was on a bus to Detroit to take to the AFES building to take the ASVAB test. And then in July, after high school, I went to boot camp. And I went in, that's what kind of I'm not writing ahead, man, because I went in on an open contract. So I signed an open contract with the Marine Corps, basically telling them, please put me anywhere you want me doing anything you want me to do in the entire world.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I went in the Marine Corps on an open contract and I ended up in Hawaii in the infantry. And I went to Lebanon when that was going on, and I saw the New Jersey bombing the shit out of Lebanon, and the bodies coming on the ship. I was on the biggest ship, so they had the medical team on there and what have you. And that's the Marine Corps is one of my proudest things I've ever done. But there's some training stuff that went on and some craziness that messes with your head still, you know,
Yeah.
just being in Lebanon. I remember reading that there was a ceasefire in Lebanon. I think Reagan or somebody arranged a ceasefire. And I'm looking off the ship going, if that's a ceasefire, what the hell, man? And every day for so many days, they told us you're going in tomorrow to be in that. And
Yeah.
it affects you. It affects you in a way, that whole experience and things that I don't necessarily want to go into. It affects you in ways that, let's put it this way, I love being home by myself. And I'm not too much of you won't catch me. Look at how many times I've called you, and I love you, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't call anybody. I don't
Yeah.
call anybody. I don't go anywhere. I don't. If somebody's watching this and they're going, he never calls me. I never call anybody. I don't go hang out with anybody. I just some of the things that I don't know if that's it or what, but I'm pretty much, I like it here in my space. I'm in a little room that's probably 8 by 8,
Yeah.
and this is my happy place with my art, my things, as disheveled as it is. And I don't know, man. That'll, I don't know. I just,
No, I understand, brother. And I love you too. That's why I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story and your history. Yeah, the thing that I find fascinating, but also allows me to understand how it can affect you even more so, is that creativity, right? That sensitivity to understanding beauty and things of that nature. And you're put in a wartime situation where you're seeing the horrors of war. So that sensitive person is experiencing the horrendous tragedy that's taking place. And I would venture to say you're probably feeling it even more so than some of your other brothers that were there. And it's understandable. And I know personally, just because we've been friends for a while, I know you still deal with that, the after effects of that.
I'm, yeah, but I don't know. There's a lot of guys out there that I had nothing compared to so many,
Sure.
so I don't like to say, "Oh, look at me," but I had nothing compared to so many. But there was some stuff, man. But yeah, you feel it, and sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night. I'm back there,
Yeah.
and it's the people that are still to this day are out there doing just horrendous things that they have to do to save this or for this country so that we can sit here and do this podcast and go to nice restaurants and go to concerts and do the things that make this the greatest country in the world. God bless them. God bless my hat off to them. And it's just it's a beautiful thing that people sign up to do that so that we can just enjoy this beautiful life and pursue art, man. Funny pictures every day
Yeah.
and keep a roof over my head. And that is just a miracle and a wonderful thing. I'm
Yeah.
blessed. I'm not boo-hooing me, man. I'm saying I'm a blessed man.
No, and I understand that. And I can appreciate that thought process, and but also too I want the listeners to understand that there's things that affect you throughout your life, and as an artist and you being also a military veteran, you have the ability to speak on that. So I think somebody that might be hearing this and listening to it that may have a similar experience can relate to that, and that's what I wanted to allow to come out about the conversation is the
Sure.
potential of the relatability, right?
Yeah, yeah. If I can say anything to anybody that would help them in any way, I would. I still communicate with the Marines I was in with, and we talk on the phone. So it's been a little while, honestly, lately, but we guys that I was in with back 30 some odd, almost 40 years ago now. Yeah, I still keep in touch with them, and I tell them every time that I talk to them, I love them and help them in any way I can with different things with the VA and what have you, and give them advice and anything I can say about things we saw and did. I did not have the combat experience like so many did. I was there, but so many other guys have had it so much worse than I.
Yeah.
I see a counselor every now and then and talk about it, and
Okay.
in a lot of my counseling is talking to my brothers because it's weird talking to a stranger about
Something
what
they haven't experienced.
here and it's inside here.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. I've done it a few times, but for me, looking at a face that's familiar,
Right.
even though it's a 40-year-old older face, it's still my brother. And
Yeah.
so we talk, and that is therapeutic because I don't have to explain it. They were there, you
Yeah.
know? And so I would say to anybody that feels alone or in pain or suffering, my best therapy is not necessarily talking to a professional, even though that's wonderful. And I don't discount that at all. I think you should. But for me, talking to my brothers, man, and they were there, that is the most cathartic, therapeutic thing. And please reach out if you have the ability to talk to the guys that served with, or see them, go see them, go hang
Yeah.
out with. Because, like I say, I don't hang out with people too much, but I would make time. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to a sergeant I was in with, craziest son of a gun I ever met, and he rose up through the ranks of the Marine Corps faster than anybody I'd ever seen. His birthday is the Marine Corps birthday,
Oh,
and
wow.
he is a wild, nutty, awesome, crazy, wonderful human being. And he got in touch with me not too long ago, said he's coming over this spring. And we're going to sit in my backyard and wear out my barbecue and talk for a few days on it. And that's going to be a wonderful thing. And
Very
I'm
cool.
excited for that. And he's suffering. He let me know he's suffering with a lot of things, his body, aspects of the service, and aspects of work afterwards. And I don't know. My brother is, so I won't go into all his personal details, but the boy's health is not good. And he got into burn pits and all
Yeah.
that stuff over in the Gulf War and Scud missiles landing around him. So I talk to him as much as I can. I need to talk to him more often, but his health is not good. And I'm 100% sure it's because of the chemicals he was exposed to over in the Gulf War.
Yeah.
Uh, these people are, and not to mention just the mental aspect of it. I know I'm talking physical, but the mental aspect of you go in. I'm a bright-eyed little shit from Stanton that's going to be an artist, and the next thing I know, 14 months later, I'm looking at Lebanon, and I don't know if I was mentally prepared for that because I'd never not spent the other than spending the night at a sleepover at a buddy's house or camping with them. I'd never been away from home, and the next thing I know,
Across
I'm
the
getting
world.
brutality right in the face. And
Yeah.
I don't know if any, we're sending kids over there that are, it's a lot to process, and it doesn't go away just because you're older, because it's just a lot to deal with, man. It's a lot to put on people's shoulders. That whole, it's a lot to ask of, especially we're sending kids over. They're kids.
Yeah.
You go to college and or you don't. I didn't go to college. I think you asked that. Why didn't I go in? My dad took me to the recruiter was one thing, and I really, it was, I'm a high school dropout, man. Literally a high school. I didn't graduate high school.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, I went in the Marine Corps and took two classes and got my diploma from high school in Hawaii.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so I literally left school without a diploma. And yeah, and some people look at me like, how do you, that's some people look at you like that's impressive, and some look at you like you're not that impressive at all because you should have gotten the document. But I don't know. It was never in me to go to. Something happened to me when I was a kid. That cousin that I told you about,
Yeah.
who was a fantastic artist. She went up to Ferris State, I think it was,
Okay.
and she went for art. And some professor like put her down so bad she quit college and
Oh,
never
wow.
finished college, and made her feel so bad about what she. And that's, I'm loosely saying it,
Yeah.
but because it's been a lot of years and I'm just using memory from 50 years ago. But, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to let some professor get in my head
Yeah.
and not, I don't need somebody to tell me what I'm going to do. I don't
Right.
need your approval. And if you want to teach me some techniques, great. Shut your pie hole about the headspace, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, he put her down so bad she stopped going to college, or made her feel so bad about what she was doing. And I thought, you bastard,
Right.
the way, what she, because I looked at her art and I thought she was amazing. But, and I was several years younger than her, but yeah, that was when I was 3 to 9, 10 years, 11 years old, that was my, like, holy crap, look at what that person can do.
Yeah.
He took that away from her. And I thought, I'm never going to let somebody do that to me.
Yeah.
And so right away, I said, college is out for me. And that I've forgotten about that till we just started talking about it. But yeah, I never wanted to let anybody inside my brain to affect what I was going to do or what I was capable. And so I learned it on my own, man. when I look at, I'll people might think I'm weird because I study people. Like, well, if I'm out and about and I see people sitting in a chair or walking a certain way, or they're big or small or tall or short, I'll stare at them a little too long. But I'm like looking at their body, the way it moves, the way it gestures, the
Yeah.
way the shadows are, the way whatever, and I put it right back here and I draw on it. I could sit here with my iPad and you could say, draw this, and I would need no reference because I forgot about this too. I for the longest time when I was like first starting out drawing until I was in my 20s, I would not look at any reference to draw.
Okay.
I would look at it and then I would sit with the paper and draw what I'd looked at. But to sit and look at reference while I'm drawing, no, that was cheating to me.
Okay.
So I made my brain like work super hard to photo memorize what I had seen. I've had people, I did a caricature of somebody once, and they had me have a conversation with them. I had a conversation with them, got in the car, drove home for a half hour, and drew the person, and then took it back the next day for a gift. But I had memorized their face to the point where I could draw them. And I had exercised that my whole life by making myself study shapes and bodies and the way the eyes, are they tilted like this or this? Are they set wide apart or close together? Is it a big nose, small nose? Is there a big upper lip, small upper lip, big smile? Everything about that, and then the way the body moved or gestured or the shape, I made myself learn that. And that was my education. Was I didn't want anybody getting inside here, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted it to be innate. I wanted it to be you do this, man. You have the ability to do this, do it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. What I'm picking up on here is a sense of resiliency. And what I mean by that in this instance is the fact that you're looking at your cousin, she's kind of your example of what a good artist is. And you see what takes place with her in terms of her going off to college and getting just defeated by the professor that she had. And you were tame with the example of that. So that in my brain, it just went to the extreme of how she was treated. But you saw that and you said, no, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to let that take place. And even with your dad being like not understanding what you're doing, you're in those moments, you're like, this is me. This is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And even him taking you and your brother to the recruiting station, right? You're like, all right, we'll go do this for dad because this is what he thinks we need to do. And then you go experience what you have in going overseas and getting through that. There's a whole lot of resiliency that is within you that I'm recognizing from early on in life. And I see it nowadays and I've saw it over the years that we've known each other, but I just want the audience to pick up on this as well as I am. The amount of resiliency that creativity can allow you to have if you understand that's what you're supposed to be is that creative and you stick with it and move with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't take no for an answer. Yeah. Just, and then putting yourself out there, man. I always say, sometimes people ask me for advice, this, that, and the other thing, because they look at what I've done or see a piece I've done for this person or that person. And how did you do that? And my grandkid wants to do album covers. How does he get about doing that? They ask me for advice, and I just say, people can't buy what they don't know exists. And
Right.
if they don't know you exist, they can't hire you.
Yeah.
So I was like the biggest advocate for, I don't care if it's a bartender, if it's the guy that, I don't know, I'm standing beside at a gas station or whoever, anybody that would sit still. And I thought for an inkling, we'd start a conversation and with whoever, and I would tell them, "Hey, man, I can do this. I'm an artist. I can do this." And I would tell anybody who were that I can. This is what I do, and I can do this for you. And that's it served me well. And then the work ethic my dad taught me. Work ethic is huge, and being personable. You could be the greatest artist in the world, far exceed what I can do. But if you're a jerk, you're never going to get anywhere. I don't care. If you're a pain in the ass, if you don't go the extra mile for people, because at the end of the day, yeah, but I'm more of a problem solver than anything. I make problems go away. I need a gift. Here you go. I've done this. I need a t-shirt. I've designed this. I need a backdrop. Here you go. I need an advertising piece. I need a mascot. I need whatever it is that to help you get to where you want to go. I can solve that problem. And if you
Right.
think about yourself as making, if I can make mid-level manager look awesome to his boss and he gets a raise, now all of a sudden his kids are able to go play softball or get new sneakers or whatever. So I'm like, if you look at it from a standpoint that you have some, because I'm a commercial artist, I ache to just do what I want to do. I want to sculpt and paint and all that stuff for just for me. I
Yeah.
ache to, but at the end of the day, I get to do what I love to do and make people's lives better out there. So if you look at yourself like you have a commodity or you can solve problems, and so that's what I see myself as more than anything. I'm a creative, but I'll sit in a boardroom with somebody and they'll explain to me this problem, that problem, and I'll through conversation and working with them, we'll come to we'll get the answer and then I'll create it. And I always see myself as if you can think of a project as starting here and ending here, that's me. I'm down here because I don't call anybody else. I don't go, can you help me? Can you help me? It goes back up to the end product from me.
Yep.
So there's no, I'm getting my hands dirty. I'm spending the late hours. I'm getting up early when I need to. And I'm a problem solver. So like it goes to me and then it doesn't go any lower because I'm not calling anybody.
Right.
I'm making it happen. It's going back. And then it's going to be on this stage or on that billboard or on this advertisement or it's going to be on this label or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, that's you have to if you want to make a living, solve problems, think of yourself that way and be fun to be around. I was a creative director. I launched Mossio Graphics, which if you go down the road and you see the pickups with the camo on the rocker bars and all these ducks and deer or whatever on, I helped launch that company.
Yeah.
And I had to interview people. That was my only experience in life being the interviewer.
Okay.
And I remember sitting there talking to these people that were coming in with their portfolio. And some of them I felt bad for. Some of them were annoying.
Yeah.
Some of them were too eager. Some were this, that, and the other thing. But there was one guy that stood way out above the others. And his portfolio was beautiful. But I thought to myself, and this was key to me more than how great his art was, is do I want to hang out with you every day?
Yeah.
Do I can I trust you? Are
Yeah.
you going to have my back as much as I'm going to have your back? And he was a better artist than me. He was a great designer, fantastic. And that's the thing. That's another thing to be. If you're going to bring in talent, let's say you and I wanted to collaborate on something, and you thought I was better than, or somebody else was better than me at something that you needed. I would hope that you would bring them in over me, because at the end, you've got to it's just got to gel. It's got to work. It's a band or anything else. It's like the Lions. They don't want to bring in this jackass from a lousy he's a great talent, but is he going to mess up the chemistry? Yeah,
Exactly.
it's got to be chemistry and talent, and it's all got to gel. I'm rambling, but my long story short is be personable, be agreeable, be as competent in what you're offering as you can be, and be a
Yeah.
problem. And that's, if I don't think of myself as the best artist I've ever seen, I see guys out there that are far better than me. Maybe I work more than them, maybe I work less, but I try to be. It's like you pull up to McDonald's, man, and you order a Big Mac, and if they handed you a burrito, you'd be like, "What the heck is this?" So you have to be that same brand, that same quality, and deliver the same every time.
Yeah,
People, because they can call you and they go, "It's done. John's got it. Rich has got it. It's the same every time." They want that same taste, flavor, everything every time. So you got to hone your skills, and that's what, I don't know. You just, if you think of yourself more or what you're offering, and keep your personal BS or whatever it is to the side, you'll do more work. I
for
don't know.
sure. For sure. And that's the thing where you and I have always clicked is that we've realized the skill sets that each other has. And I've always say it, I'll always say it going forward is that when we get together, we're dangerous. We're just,
Yeah, dude, we've done some cool stuff, man.
yeah, we're dangerous if the world lets us run wild.
Yeah, I have.
Moving, moving back
Yeah,
to,
man. I'm not kidding, man. That's the truth.
yeah, moving back to the going in with a an open contract for the Marines and you get to your 4 year mark, what is that starting to look like in terms of you realizing, okay, I might be able to get out of this, or are you getting proposed with another contract or any of that type of stuff?
At that time, it was never, in my mind, there was never an option for re-upping.
Okay.
I knew I had to get out of there and start what I was going to do. And my dad thought I was crazy because, man, another 16 years, you can get a pension. And it's not wrong. But to me, I couldn't. I was like, I don't, I was like a dog getting ready to be adopted, man. Open that cage and let me come home, man. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be an artist. I'm in the backyard, like running in circles, man. What do I do? Where do I do? Where do I go? And just throwing stuff at the wall, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be this. I'm ready to do this. I could feel it. I could just feel it.
Yeah.
Like I say, to put your finger on it because a lot of technology had to develop for me to get to where I was. A lot of the world had to evolve to a place where you could make a living anywhere in the world. And nobody was going to hire me. Number one, I don't have an education, and all I have is a lot of ambition and some talent. Who's going to hire me to be their creative director, their art director, based on a few sketches or whatever? So I had to develop what I was doing. But yeah, re-upping in the Marine Corps was not. I was ready to hit the gas and go be me. Just go find what that was. I just
Right.
couldn't wait.
Okay. So
Very focused. Very
you
focused.
you get out, you get back home, and what do you do
Yeah.
then?
I moved in. I went home for a couple of weeks, stayed with my dad, and then moved in with my buddy John down in. He was going to Wayne State to study law. He's an attorney in the Detroit area,
Okay.
and I moved in with him down at Wayne State, and I became a security guard. And I did that, and that's where I met the one FedEx driver who had the sister who was the art director, and she turned me on to another art director. And so I went in the Marine Corps, and I got out, and I became a security guard, and then I went and I processed. I worked in the mailroom and did building maintenance for companies, a couple of different companies. And after a while, my wife at the time started a company. She got let go due to downsizing at FTD.
Okay.
And so she was a graphic artist. And so she started her company a year later. She's, I need help. You need to quit your job and come and help me. And that was 95, 95, 96. And we just went all in and said, we're going to do this. She was a wordsmith, typesetter, and I was more the creative. So the way it evolved was there, we used to go to something called a service bureau.
Okay.
And that basically, when you create art back then, you had to take it to a service bureau to have it processed a certain way so that it would go to press, what have you. It had to film or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's a key thing too, is there's a key thing to that too. But the deal was is that the service bureau, everybody had to pay homage to the service bureau. So whatever you're doing, if you're creating art for this, that, the other thing, everybody has to go to the service bureau to get it ready to go to press. People would walk in there and go, I don't have anybody to create art.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the service bureau saw us, a company not far away, and they were like, they can do this, call them. So that started getting us work because we were in the trenches, man, and we were you remember like cutting rubylith
Yes.
and that stuff. We're talking
Yeah.
epitone. We're talking back in the day, man.
Real printing, press printing,
So,
not digital.
dude, I'm
Yeah.
talking you worked, man. I remember putting wax on the back of little ads and doing layouts. Yeah, we came from it was work. It wasn't anything glorious or fancy. And so anyway, yeah, so that got us eventually my creativity, my ability to create art, and her ability to lay out text got us into the automotive industry. So the
Okay.
next thing you know, we're working for Textron and Tata, and I eventually got into Autoleave, who is the world's largest seatbelt and airbag manufacturer. And we did a ton of business for them for a decade. And so the automotive industry, it just happened because one person at Service Bureau said, hey, call this guy. And that guy said, next. And the next thing, we're working for two or three tier one suppliers. And then you've built a business. I don't
Yeah.
know, just being at the right place and focusing on the technical aspect of it. But I brought the creativity part to it, that the creativity was the one that, how do you say it, being able to create illustrations and designs beyond text and beyond forms was the catalyst that made it really take off. And it took off. And 38 years old, I bought a beautiful home out in the country with 5 acres. And it was all because, what I could do with this brain and these hands, not spending a day in college,
Yeah.
not being taught anything by anybody other than what I knew. And
Yeah. When you started,
I don't, that's the way it happened. It just evolved.
yeah, no, exactly. One of the earlier things that you mentioned was WLLZ, which at back in the day, WLLZ was one of the biggest rock stations in Metro Detroit, and I believe countrywide as well, if I'm not mistaken. We called it the Wheels. That was their tagline, Detroit's Wheels. What was that like trying to get hooked in with WLLZ and the radio station scenarios for you?
It was eye opening. I went there. You hear, so I'm basically ignorant. I don't know anything about the way things work. So you listen to the radio station and they're giving away $10,000 to this person and 5,000 of that, tickets and all this stuff, and all this currency is flowing through the radio station, right? And you're thinking to yourself, oh crap, maybe I could work for them and that would be great. But you go there and they're like, we don't have any money. So how is that possible? It's an interesting There's an interesting thing. Now, Wheels, I just went and had one meeting with them, and I'd come up with a mascot concept. I won some tickets, basically. So I went there, and the program or the marketing director handed me the tickets, came out. I don't remember her name, but either here nor there. But I said, listen, I'm an artist. I'd like to show you some ideas, some concepts, because that's what I did. If
Yeah,
you were standing still, I would say, hey, I'm an artist.
right.
So I'm going there to get my tickets. And she's okay. Here's my number. Come back and let's set up something. So I presented all these ideas. I remember at the time, and he's still on the radio. Doug Podell,
Yeah.
the Doc of Rock. Doug Podell was there, and
Yep.
he's show me. And I remember walking in, and Jim Johnson. He was a morning guy. I remember walking by him, and he's putting Visine in his eyes. I remember just the small little crazy stuff. And like Doug was like, they put me in a room and made me wait. And Doug Podell walks in and he's just showing, I didn't know who he was. And he's like, just show me what you got. I said, I'm waiting for everybody to come in. He said, just show me. I'm like, okay. So that was my introduction to him. So I just showed him. And nothing ever came from it. Nothing ever came from it. That's cute, whatever, blah, done. But the thing about radio stations that really changed my life, if you don't care if I just keep going on
Yeah,
this,
run it. Run it.
all right, cool. So what all right, so what happened was I was on a lunch break from I was a building maintenance guy, and I was on a lunch break, and at the time Ted Nugent was doing a residency there for a week, and he was signing off during my lunch hour. So I'm like, growing up, there was Kiss, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, Alice Cooper. That was the end of AC/DC. That was my world. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to go meet Ted. So I go over there, and I'm standing outside the radio station, and Ted's taking a sweet time leaving, and he finally comes outside, and he's signing everything from chicks' butts to the dashboard of a Bronco. And I'm sitting back and I'm watching and I'm like biding my time and I'm paying attention to people around. And I noticed a guy that was like his manager or whatever. And so I went up to him and said, "Listen, I'm an artist. I'd love to work with Ted," because Ted was pretty entrepreneurial. He had his own membership thing going on, a hunt club or whatever, and World Bow Hunters. And he would have put out a magazine every couple months and what have you. And I'm like, there's opportunity here. And so I told him that. So I got the manager to go introduce me to Ted. And I said, "Ted, I'm an artist and I'd love to work with you." And he sent me some stuff. I said, "I'll do it." So I got the address over in Jackson and I spent a couple weeks drawing stuff and I put it in an envelope and sent it off. And waited a couple weeks, nothing. I'm like, it was no big deal. I'm checking my voicemail from work one day, and I had an old answer machine you could call and get your messages. And I'm like listening. I'm like, "Hey, John, it's Ted Nugent. I love your work, man. I'd like to have you work for me." And I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit, Ted Nugent called my house, man. And the next thing you know, I literally worked for Ted for free 10 years, doing once a month or once every couple of months, like a little cartoon called the Gomer Award. And he put it in his magazine. And I'm like, I'm happy for number one, I've got published artwork, and I'm not
Right.
doing anything of any magnitude anyway at the time.
Yeah.
And so I've got published work. I'm happy. It's Ted. Ted's I grew up listening to Ted. Ted is a misunderstood person. I think he would. You and I've had an experience,
Yep.
but with Ted. But I think if if Ted Nugent didn't have people around him, he would probably give you the shirt off his back. He's
Yeah.
that generous a human being, and if he didn't, he needs people to keep him from being. He's just too generous. I know people hate him. I don't care. He was very instrumental in my life because after I worked for him, did this little cartoon, which didn't take me that much time, and I was glad for the published work. Took about It was his 50th birthday. I did this picture for him. He used it on a T-shirt. He started paying me after a while because he had this concert he did on New Year's Eve, and he used one of my pieces of artwork on a T-shirt. So he paid me for that. And then I did this other piece for his 50th birthday, which ended up a few years later being a backdrop. So I prep the file. I talk to these people out in California, and they're like, "It's got to be this and this, 40 feet by 20 or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, I think I've built it close to that. I can do this, that, and everything." And they have to have so much resolution. So I did this piece of art or worked on it and got it for Ted's tour. And that was my first backdrop ever for any band. And they took a look at the file and had enough resolution and they liked the creativity. So they remembered me. A year goes by, a year about goes by. This is all a very long process. Anyway, a year goes by and I get a phone call from them and they're like, "Hey, we've got an opportunity to produce Crew Fest 2, but we need somebody to create the artwork for Motley Crue. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, interested." So I did. It was a huge production. It was like they did Dr. Feelgood front to back, and then they did another set with some other songs, and it was huge, man. And I got to I got to work. Nikki Sixx is
Creative. Yeah, they're creative guy.
he's their workhorse for the band, if you will. He's one that, yeah, he's the man behind the scenes. He's probably writing the songs and he's handling all the creative for all this stuff. Anyway, got to know him a little bit. It was just a great experience. I didn't screw that up. So the next thing you know, that company, so what, out in California, they're like, hey, we're going to hook you up with this guy. So Billy Idol needs some artwork. And then it was Don Henley needs some artwork. And then it was Rod Stewart needs some artwork. And then it was on, Little Big Town and just band after band. And all of a sudden, I'm working for just about anybody you could think of, from Megadeth to Disturbed to Lizzo to the list is, I can't even, I should write it down. It's just long. I was blessed with being either doing production, which basically means not creative, which means, hey, is this artwork good enough to be printed 40, 60, 80 feet,
Yeah.
whatever, or doing creative. Most of the time people come to me with an idea of what they want to do and where they want to go. They don't necessarily say, hey, you come up with it, because they've got an album that it's going along with. So
Yeah.
it has to be in that or what have you. Because I come from that, going back to Rubylith and Zipatone, that production background, the work background,
Yep.
I understand. It's not, is it cute? Yeah. Is it pretty? Yeah. But will it print this big? I can't tell you. At least once to three times a year, I'm recreating somebody's album cover. The
Yeah.
last one that comes to mind is, oh, I forget but it's the one where the dirt goes up like this into space and the kids are running up the dirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, I recreated that down to every little piece of
Rock.
dirt,
Yeah.
shadow, everything.
Yeah.
I did the Neil Young's logo, this Crazy Horse logo. I had to recreate that down to just the micro, so it looked like, because he just had this painting of it that never been made digital. Just, I can't even remember all the bands on that. Counting Crows, I think, was the last one I did that for. And then you have to, albums are square, backdrops are rectangular. So I would create space that had never been created and make it seamless, like it was already thought of for
Yeah.
on a few bands. I can't even remember.
You're essentially you have been doing generative fill, the element of Photoshop that is now AI, where you're creating the extra amount of an image where now AI is doing it. You've been doing it as the actual artist for years at this point.
And with these, not just typing in something,
Exactly.
and using this and these, as
Exactly.
opposed to, yeah, I saw that work one time. That bothers. I'm not a guy. I am not a fan. But yeah, it's like but and then again, I've gotten work because people design backdrops with AI and they're this big. Like I did a Tenacious D backdrop here not too long ago, a couple years ago, and they had this beautiful AI image, but it would print great on an 8.5 by 11 or maybe an 11/17 piece of paper.
Yeah.
So you take that and make it work. So painstakingly using this as reference and like from nothing creating the candelabras and the floor texture and the doors and all the space in the room and the atmosphere and one thing at a time. I have gotten work because people have created AI images that won't print at 40 feet.
Yeah.
Or I guess they could. I don't know if there's a back end to that to say, oh, create this huge image. I'm sure that's coming. But yeah, they don't think of it that way.
And two, that's the whole thing with AI is unless something's being input into it, it doesn't have any information to begin with. Where I think that's what sets us apart still as artists and creatives is we don't have to input information in. We just can take in visually what's in our head or something that we see and reference and can create it, or we can create it from nothing. So that's the difference that's the difference of what's going on at this point in time. But with doing the work with
Yeah.
Ted and also talking with Doug Podell, there was a certain part where you started doing some more work for the radio station as well, correct?
Yeah, I worked for Riff for a long time
Yeah.
back in the day. I don't even remember how that all started. How did that all start? I don't remember. I must have, some of the DJs must have, I don't know, migrated that way or something that I knew, but I don't know. But yeah, I worked, yeah, I did Maui Time and Riff Rock Girl logo, but I worked with Arthur Penhollow, and the girl, the marketing director was Nikki Van Dorn at the time, and she had me do, I'd create promo pieces when bands would come. Do you remember they give out those stickers that are ovally or rectangular with a rounded. I did, I don't know, I've done a dozen of those or so, the Riff stickers and just different promo for them and what have you. But and that was fun. That was like, I don't know, it was just fun to be a part of that. You're getting paid something to be a part of the rock culture of Detroit for a period of time.
Yeah.
I did the cover of Metro Times for a year, a couple of years.
Okay.
It's part of the Detroit culture and events and concerts and what have you in the area. So it's cool to walk down the street in Royal Oak and you walk by the news box and there's the cover that you just created a few days ago. Or go to a concert in at the Fox or Pine Knob or wherever, and there's my artwork behind this rock star or that rock star. And it's it doesn't get old. I can tell you that. I'm looking for. I don't know what's next, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. No,
It doesn't get old. It's fun. It's
I know you mentioned that you'd helped launch the Mossy Oak brand, launching the Mossy Oak brand. And but I know that you've also been involved with some NASCAR stuff as well.
yeah. That's yep. I That was all through Autoleave. I don't. Where does it? Okay, so I worked for Autoleave, which is the world's largest seatbelt and airbag manufacturer,
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar company, and I helped. I was part of the entered equipment well before they might have done that, and that was basically a public awareness type of thing we were doing, guerrilla marketing, doing things like PSAs, and I did a NASCAR that ran to Daytona 500 to get that notion because at the time people were opting. It was a $400 option, and people were opting for a 5 disc CD player in their car over a side curtain airbag.
Yeah.
So as far as options, and I'm thinking, you guys are crazy, man. So anyway, that what happened was the guy that worked at Autoleave invented something called the Hutchins device, which is a head and neck restraint that saves lives. He went on and started. He left Autoleave, started his own company, and I did all the creative for a company called Safety Solutions that he started. That company got bought out by Simpson Racing. And Simpson, if you've ever watched a NASCAR race, if you look at the belts, like right here on the seat belts, it says Simpson in red letters.
Yeah.
So I started working for Simpson because that's a big part of like how I've made a living is when I do something for this company, these people leave the company and go on to other companies. And I can do a direct line between Ted Nugent and Mattel Barbie in my life doing work. And it's a straight line.
Yeah.
Not kidding. It's a true story. But it's about doing a good job for people and they go on, they leave this company or that company and they go on to do this, that, or the other thing. But yeah, I've done is getting back to NASCAR. I've done, like I say, I just posted on Instagram the other day the little toy car from the NASCAR I did the graphics for. And I've done like all the head and neck restraint stuff for Safety Solutions. And then I did work with Simpson doing everything from t-shirts to packaging. I never thought I'd do packaging, but I do packaging. And I can't even remember all the things I've done for them. And then recently, the guy that invented the Hutchins device, Trevor, he just started a new venture where he's doing belts and nets and what have you. So I'm helping him get that launched right now. As a matter of fact, I've got a project for him in the hopper right now, helping him launch his new venture. He was with Simpson. He left Simpson. That's that's the way. That's it's like throwing a rock in the water. It just ripples out. So like I do something for one company and they go, he's competent enough and creative enough, so they leave and they go to this company and that company. I did something for a here's a story. I was at a camp. I was at my friend Chrissy's place at a camp where we're camping at her place. She shows me a little sticker this big and it says shitty coolers. Okay. SHITI coolers. And I thought, that's funny. I answered an ad they put online to do some creative. And so I went and they picked me out of everybody. I don't know, maybe because I'm geographically close or whatever, but so I went and met with them and started working for them. They were a relatively successful company. I started doing artwork for them and I'd say 60% of what they sold had my artwork on it, from stickers to t-shirts to what have you. And now they've been on in Forbes. They've sold the company or a good chunk of it, but they're huge. And it started with that. But what happened from doing working with Shitty Coolers is I started working for a company called Dano's Seasoning. And Dano's, because they saw the stuff I was doing for this company,
Yep.
Dano's, I did the little guy that's on the bottle. And so anyway, some people left that company. So that company, I started working for Eric Wood, who's a former Buffalo Bill. He was a center for the Buffalo Bills, and I did like a logo for him, and then that led to another company who's a fan club for the Bills called the Bills Mafia. I'm working for them, and then another guy left the Shitty Coolers and went to, gosh, I don't even remember. But anyway, I'm doing a logo for a restaurant starting next week, and it's all, and there's two or three other things that I'm skipping my mind right now. But you do a good job here, and then it just goes down and down, and the next thing you know, that's the key to, for me, keeping a roof over my head is, yeah, I'm designing this, but then I'm also an entertainer. I go out and do caricatures at events for corporations or private citizens. So I've honed my shtick and my speed, and I'll go out and draw caricatures of people and entertain them. So it's about filling in the gaps, because like I've only done one caricature gig this year, which
Oh,
is
wow.
totally unusual for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one I did in December. I did one a couple weeks ago, and then I don't have another one until next month, which for me is unheard of. But it's just the way things have happened. But in the meantime, the studio is picked up, and I'm doing. I won't mention names, but there's a company that they're going for a Guinness Book of World Records, and so they wanted like this crazy design for a T-shirt and a poster type of thing, and
Okay.
that's happening next month. I'm doing a band that I'm doing a backdrop for a band. What am I doing here? I've got a list. I'm doing some promo for Shitty Coolers. I'm doing a mascot for a farm that is opening up this year. I'm doing a mascot for them and different variations of this mascot. I'm working with well-known, I won't say their name but it's a really well-known Detroit brand that sells T-shirts and what have you. I'm
Okay.
working with them, developing developing designs for this, that, and the other thing. This, but it's all. I guess why I'm rambling like that is all this has happened because I tried to do a good job for one person, and they said nice things about me or thought about enough about what I did that they wanted to use me in other ventures that they were doing. And that goes back to what we were talking about a half hour ago
Yeah.
about, doesn't matter if you're the best art, if you're competent and reasonably creative, if you're not an asshole, you're going to get some work. And if you're willing to put in, just be as accommodating as you can be, and take away people's problems. Don't create problems. And that's how I've made a living, trying to make your life better.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that, again, I'm seeing a resiliency element that's still playing out throughout the course of the story. Also, too, the looking for opportunities outside of the traditional layout of the industries, not completely closing yourself off to thinking this is the only thing that I do, so I'm only going to do this. You've always had the ability to see the potential opportunity to do something because you knew inside of you you had the creative ability to meet that need.
Okay. So what are you asking? I apologize.
No, I was saying you've had the ability to see outside of the box and not just be in a straight line in a tunnel of looking at things and saying, this is all that
Oh
I
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You've always been open-minded to the possibility because of your creativity.
Yeah, yeah. Or anything that I mean, I've okay, so once upon a time, Autoleave was doing a crash test and they were having a bunch of people in to watch this crash, right? And they needed bleachers, the area where the crash was going on. I facilitated the bleachers being in there. So it wasn't necessarily about necessarily creative. I don't even know why that popped in my head, but I'm thinking, what have I done to make people's lives better or make problems go away?
Yeah.
So it's about going, yeah, I could do that, and then figuring out how to do it. Yeah, it's about diversity. You have to. Nobody has to do anything. You could stay in your lane could be this wide. Mine is this wide.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be an entertainer, if you want to do caricatures, that's all you do. Or if you want to be a designer and that's all you do, or if you want to do page layout and that's all you do, great. I hope those opportunities fulfill you and keep a roof over your head.
Yeah.
I'm more like I want to provide a wide variety. I'll entertain your 6 year old. I'll create a gift for your wedding anniversary. I'll create a flyer for your racing safety company. I'll do a backdrop for your metal band. I'll t-shirts I've been doing more t-shirts than they can shake a stick at. I just did one for a band called Moonshine Bandits the other day,
Yeah.
who are some wild boys. They're
Yeah.
a hoot. They're a hoot. They're great to work with. They're I don't know. It was like butter. It was just like smooth, man. But we have this mutual fondness for each other's work. So it was I get their brand. But I don't know. Yeah, if you're a person that wants to or needs to keep a roof over your head with what you can do with your hands and your creativity, I would suggest trying to be as diverse as possible. And these opportunities and it's I've got a buddy that I've got people that I call for production. All right.
Yep.
If I need a car wrapped, if I need graphics on a wall, if I need a banner, if I need a business card, I need printing, I need a piece of art that is printed to canvas. People are my go-to people. And I understand that I am the go-to person for certain key things that people think of. So as far as being an artist, for me, what sustained me is the ability to let people know that he does this and this. So it's kind of you can go buy your groceries over here at the local store, or you can go to Meyer. I'm more like Meyer because you can get car battery and a steak. You can get dog food and a checkerboard. So I'm more the ones I'm trying to be that kind of more that one style. I can't make everybody happy. I am a certain I have a certain style to what I do,
Yeah.
and I'm not everybody's flavor of the day. And I understand that. And I don't, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the world. I can't please everybody, and I don't necessarily care to. I just want to do good for the people that hire me for that. And, but I try to be, I come from, that's the thing, man, is that I come from a production background. So, is it look good? Hopefully, yes. But is it sound design? Is it the infrastructure of the file? Are you going to be out there going, what the hell? This looks like crap. It looked pretty on the screen,
Yeah.
but there's no infrastructure to it. There's foundation. You got to be competent in production and what that is. Spot color, is it four color? Is it 40 feet or 40 inches? Is it all these things that, when I sit in a meeting with somebody, I ask all these questions. How is it going to be produced? What are the uses? And I always overbuild anyway, because I know already I can see the train coming that you're going to want this enough, or it's going to be received well enough that you're going to need it this big and that big, and you're going to need it to float, spin, animate. I'm not an animator. Don't call me for animation. I have, but that's funny too. Is if people think you're a designer illustrator, they automatically think you're an animator. I don't know where that came about, but that's a thing. It's a thing. No,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
a whole nother set of skills. But
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
That
you know, yeah,
one of the things that I harken back to is when we first met, and it was 2011, 2011, where I go over to Kit Herbert's shop, and that was a production shop for booths and layouts and for people who are doing expos and different things like that. I went in and I told him, I said, look, I've got this jewelry line that I've just developed. I need a booth layout created. And they said, hey, we got this guy. They called you up and we scheduled a time for you to meet me over there and come out. And then when you walked in, you said, what do you got going on? And I gave you my whole spiel. I was like, I want to do this, I want to do this and this, because I had all this vision of I wanted to look this way. And then I showed you what the jewelry looked like with the imagery that we had just had done from our photo shoot for all of our marketing materials. And when you saw that, you were like, holy
okay.
crap, you couldn't believe it. You're like, holy crap.
I remember that.
Yeah, you're like, this is what your should look like. Like, not what that idea, that's cool, but this is what you need to highlight this because this jewelry is phenomenal looking. And at the time, too, it was the scenario of we don't have a huge budget for this, right? So, w what do you think it'll cost to have you mock up whatever we got going on? And you're like, what about a piece of jewelry? I was like, done. Perfect. You want a piece of jewelry? No problem. I got you. And
No, I'm not stupid.
yeah, you came back with this display layout and it was phenomenal. And all you did was you saw the beauty of what had already been created and you just enhanced it by showcasing it even more with that layout of the booth and everything for us to set up. And
Dang.
I still have all that today, even though I'm not producing the jewelry right now or and
Wow.
haven't for a couple years, but I still have all of that stuff. With that has created some opportunities for us to be able to collaborate on things. And I one of the first
Oh
collaborations,
yeah.
one of the first that I remember specifically was I came to you with an idea that I was working with this charity called Artists for Autism, and we were going to
Yeah.
design a guitar and have it auctioned off. And I had seen the work
Yeah.
that you had done for Ted, all the different graphics and stuff, and I asked you, I said, what do you think if we create, redesign this guitar and customize it and theme it around Ted. And you're like, sure, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Yep.
So we went through that process, and because of the connections you had, you were able to reach out and get the permission for us to be able to do that. And then the connection that I had with my buddy Scott, who at the time was working with Peavy, who was ironically enough, Peavy sponsored Ted with their equipment as well. So it was like a trifecta of connections taking place. Yeah. And so
Beautiful.
Scott got us the guitar. PV provided that. You were doing the graphics for the guitar to make it look sexy, and then I was going to do all the hardware, do it all in sterling
Yep.
silver. And
Dude,
yeah, we
amazing.
ended up creating this fantastic piece, and you reached out and said, "Hey, is there any way that we can get Ted to sign this?" And so you're like, "All right, got the okay. It was going to happen." He was going to be in Jackson, so we got the opportunity to go over there, meet with them. I think you even reached out to Stephen Clark on Channel 7 News and said, "Hey, we're doing this."
That was the interesting thing too, is I was doing caricatures at an event at a hotel in Rochester, and there was a lady there from the same TV station, and she was like hosting or whatever, or MC. So she got done, and I said, "Hey, listen, we're doing this. You think it might be a story?"
Yeah.
And so I just, again, "Hey, I'm an artist, knocking out the door." No, I just went up to her and said, "Yeah, what do you think of this?" And she said, "That's a cool idea." And I was talking to her and her husband about it. And so she said, "Call this." She gave me a card, said, "Call." So, like I told you, and the next thing you know, Stephen Clark is coming out to Sunrise Acres to film the thing for TV,
Yeah.
for a news spot. That's how that came down. Is I just happened to, I just happened to run into a lady when I was entertaining people at a party that worked for for the news station.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a happy, like series of circumstances, man. That was beautiful. That
Yeah.
was beautiful. That was a beautiful guitar, and
Yeah.
they ended up getting a lot of followers on their website, on their social media from that, I think,
Yeah, they did.
and I think they raised some money.
Yep. Did that, raise some money for good cause, all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And what was interesting too is that while that went out, because of Peavy being involved in it, they reached out to their whole network of media. So we ended up getting some coverage in a couple of the guitar magazine websites. Peavy put it on their website. So it was just a beautiful thing. What I want, exactly, what I want to convey for the audience is that the thing that you've been saying throughout the whole conversation about just being willing to go ahead and tell somebody that you can do something and seeing if the opportunity's there was the exact same thing that you and I were doing. I had an idea. I thought this would be a cool opportunity. We got on the phone, talked, worked back and forth, and it turned into something that was fantabulous.
It was beyond anything I could have imagined. And it's just two dudes sitting around talking about it. It was your idea, and then wow, man,
Yeah,
wow,
it
we
came
did that.
together.
That was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And so that,
We are dangerous, dude.
no, for sure. For sure. That's the beauty of that. We've worked on a few things where it's been back and forth, just either based off of stuff that you have done or something that I'm working on that I can reference back and say, hey, even with when I was doing the pieces of jewelry for Jason Krause of Kid Rock, I was like, maybe we should try and do something for Bob. And then I mentioned it to you, and you're like, wait a second, I just did the whole stage layout for the Born Free tour. And you're like, we can use this as reference material. And then we started creating these things to get these pieces together, which ultimately they didn't get produced, but just the connection and creativity between you and I, it's always been amazing. One of the things that I've been able to watch from afar is the downtime, the time when the opportunities are not there. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of how that affects a creative's mind, wading through those?
Yeah, that's I still struggle with that a little bit. I mean, even this past January was extremely slow for me. And I'm had a really good December, but January was very slow. So I started to you almost start you almost want to use somebody else's phone to call your phone. It still works. And it is. This is not for the faint of heart sometimes, but I think I I think if you, a smart thing to do, and our parents being from old school tell you to squirrel away your money, squirrel away enough to, if you can, to pay your bills for a few weeks, and that way you can ride that out. But I've been self-employed since 1996, I think, and it's still a struggle all these years later when the phone doesn't ring to a degree, but if you are able to just sit back, have a cup of coffee, be glad for waking up in the morning and your health and what have you, do those times it's a great time to do to create maybe something for you because when I'm in the like most of the time I'm like in the heat of battle like with 7 projects going on. God willing, it keeps going that way. And I have had if you look at I suck at social media and I suck at promo. I don't do nearly enough of innate me stuff. This turns me on. I want to create this. I've had this ache to sculpt lately. Just
Hmm.
with like poly clay, do something that I can hold in my hands.
Yeah.
I've been farting around with it a little bit. Oh, here's a guy I created a couple years ago. I don't
Oh, cool.
know. Just silly stuff, man. You
Yeah.
know? But I love to do stuff with my hands that I don't need electricity to see. I don't need to turn on a computer. I'm getting more. My brain is starting to work that way. But as far as getting through those times, build your portfolio, and maybe if you have really great connections with your clients, let's say you call your clients by their first names, and heck, I've even babysit my clients' kids before when they had to run their wife to the hospital.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of personal relationship with somebody, reach out to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm doing this or that," or show them a new piece of artwork or something you're thinking of, or come up with some reason. Hey, did you think about doing this with your business, or how you feeling, or anything to do the house cleaning and maybe work on your social media and maybe work on your promotion and during those times because that is fleeting. That won't last forever. And if you can just convince yourself that it isn't going to last forever and just realize that the phone is going to ring again, and now the stuff that you won't have time to do when the phone is ringing off the hook, you've got maybe something to. I'm too busy to do this, but I created this during the downtime, so I'm going to post this now. So you keep yourself out there a little bit, keep people thinking about you for things. I think that might be a good thing to do. Or just say screw it and go hang out with family or friends you haven't seen and just do your mental health check-in
Yeah.
and make sure family and take advantage of times to see people's faces and give them a hug and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I've been so busy for the last 9 months and I haven't seen you much. And because that will feed your soul and that will feed your creativity is to maybe take advantage of that time. That's where my head is at. I'm finding that, and maybe because I'm getting older, but I'm finding I've had 3 people die near me in the last 2 months or so,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, and I go to these funerals and or talk to my friends, and my dad passed away this past March, and I'm looking at life from through different lens and going, I have spent I have spent since 96 sitting in front of a computer trying to build to where I could be an artist full time. And I am starting to look at life through a different lens and go, maybe it's time to, I don't know, I don't want to say that I've missed out on anything. I don't know that I'd change anything, but it's maybe time to spend more time just with in the face of people you love and doing something for yourself. If
Yeah.
going for a walk, I need to do more of that. Taking time off and being in my own headspace. And maybe it's grabbing a paintbrush that I haven't grabbed in 15 years or doing, like I say, I want to sculpt. I want to do something different with my time during those times. And I think that will feed my creativity when I'll be able to draw on that in the heat of battle and that battery charge, that perspective. See something different. Take a trip, even if it's local. I'm 60 miles from Port Huron. I could go watch ships going up and down the river.
Yeah,
Just I don't know. I'm just saying, feed yourself, feed your soul, feed the get away. So the downtimes I'm trying to and I'm not saying I have the answers. I grapple with it myself. I'll sit here for a few days and go look at the computer and go, okay, email pop up, phone ring,
exactly.
I need to work. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I think that's it's good. It's good for you to have those. I think it's a gift to have those downtimes actually. And if you're a go getter, you're putting it out there and you're working regularly and on a normal basis, I'd say breathe. Just breathe during those times that are down and just take advantage of
Yeah,
it, whatever that means to you.
yeah, for sure. I think
You
that's a
know,
good thing for,
it's hard to do.
yeah, definitely. One of the things that I know about that you've had the opportunity to do, and I know it was an opportunity of a lifetime experience. And as a kid growing up, one of your
Okay.
favorite bands was Kiss. Now, I can relate to that because Kiss was one of my favorite bands growing up. And for me, the Dress to Kill album was the thing that made me want to go into fashion. But
Oh
you
wow, cool, cool.
but you had the opportunity to do something pretty special. Can you tell the audience what that was?
Yeah, I like I mentioned before, I the company that got a hold of me because of the artwork I did for Ted and had me do Crew Fest 2. Their name is So What, and they're in So What Inc. And they're in California, in the LA area, and they are I'm going to say it, they are the premier backdrop, curtain, anything a person needs, drapes. They are the source. They are the premier source in the music industry, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion.
Yeah.
So I was like a graphic administrator for them for a while. I actually sat in my house in Michigan for a while, and I would send the file. I would rip the files from my house in Michigan to their printer in California, and set them up so that they print in 10-foot sections. I had a guy over there loading the fabric, and I would send it to the printer from my house in Michigan. So I would check the files. Art would come in from people, and it would be poor resolution or needed vector logo or whatever it was. I would check that. So I was at one point on a daily basis talking to So What about graphics for anybody from J Lo to you name it, the Grammys, the Super Bowl. I've created graphics for the Super Bowl. I've done it all as far from a production standpoint, at any rate. But they are the premier source. So anyway, I would get emails from them on a regular basis, and this band, that band, and it'd always be the subject band, band, band. Well, lo and behold, one day it just said Kiss, and I'm like. So I read the email. It was from my buddy Shane over there at So What, and they needed their cats recreated. And the cats are they play this song called Black Diamond, and it's near the end of the show. And when they play that song, the drums go up on a lift, and there's this riser skirt that falls down or goes with the drums, and it has these two cats. At the time, at the time, and I could show you, I had these tiny little references, and the cats they had used in the past, I don't know what happened to them or whatever, but they had these sculpted heads at some point that had the cutout gold shimmery fabric for the bodies. And all the photographs, if you've seen Kiss, there's like sparks and flames and all this crap going on during this song. And I had three pieces of reference I could find on the cats. And I had to recreate the actual cats that were used during that song for Kiss. And I'm reading this email from Shane, and I'm like, I'm almost in tears. I'm like, I'm done. I don't care, you know, who. Yeah, have the Stones. Yeah, that's cool. And I have actually worked for the Stones. We can talk about that later. But whoever, I'm like, I'm done. But so I took what I could find and did the biggest trans. There are two parts to that are the biggest. How do you say it? The biggest contribution from me that makes it mine or my contribution to it, and that is the reference I had these sculpted faces and literally like 3D plastic mold faces of cats. I did my illustrated interpretation of what that is. So that is number one. Number two, and this is the thing that made my cats different than anything that had been done before, is that my cats have stripes. As I was talking to my buddy over there, and he was like, the fabric kind of droops, like this. On all the examples we can find, it droops. And I'm doing this in Illustrator. And if you know anything about working in Illustrator, it's vector, which means chunks of graphic. It isn't flow like a airbrush.
Right.
So to achieve that is like there's blending and there's whatever you can do with these chunks of graphic,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have the same painterly feel that you could achieve painting it. But it had to be vector. So I'm like farting around with. So I created this custom line. It was an oblong, like a kite shape almost. So if you took a kite shape, stretched it out, and then laid it sideways, and then put some lines beside it, and so I did that, and like I curved it, and I'm using the warp tool, and I'm like looking at this, and I started doing it, and I'm like, wow, these stripes are cool. Let me show them this. And son of a bitch, if they didn't, I made zero edits on that. Zero. My first one was the one that they used to their last concert. And they did reprint it at one time, and they painted in the eyes and like almost gave it mascara. I don't know. That's but yeah, the for the last decade that they toured with the cats that I created for them. And that was like I came from Stanton, man. I grew up in Stanton. That's at the time, I don't know, less than 2,000 people. And I remember going to Jorgensen's supermarket, and I couldn't always afford a dollar magazine, but I'd go stand there at that magazine once a week and read Hit Parader and Circus and whatever. And they were still images in a magazine. There was no MTV when I was growing up. Not at that age. You didn't I remember they were on Don Kirshner's rock concert on in the middle of the night, and we tried to stay up and see this snowy vision of the band. My first exposure to them was the Paul Lynn Halloween special, and seeing them move. I'd never
Yeah.
seen them move. Still images. They were like legendary to me, and these crazy makeup and costumes. And I could see these still images of fire and what have you. And so growing up, they were mythical. So to go from that to getting an email saying, "Hey, you want to do this for Kiss?" And I knew as anybody, for me, a live two, when you open up a live two and it's all that fire and the cats are centered.
Yeah.
I remember opening that going, "Holy crap." And to go from seeing that as a kid to doing that, not for my own entertainment, but being on that stage with that band for the last 10 years, something that I created, ugh, I can't even, I can't be, I can't even, I don't even know how to put it into words. It just, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a lot of I used a lot of what had been done, and you have to stay in brand when you're dealing with a band like Kiss. If anybody cares about their brand, it's them.
Yeah.
It's almost identical to what had been done. And the little explosion piece at the bottom is almost identical to what had been done. But the stripes had never been done before, ever. And the faces are my interpretation of sculpture of before. Am I proud of that? Yeah. I have a print of it. on my wall that I setting over here in the corner. And yeah, I just put a fork in me, man. I'm done. I don't know. That was a great moment. That was a great thing for me.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure. I know it was. And I think we can end on that high note with that. One of the things that I always like to do is just remind the audience as we sign off to listen to your heart and always be kind to your mind. Till the next time.
that is, yep, that's brilliant. I love it.
Cool.